I'm Jennifer Bruno, Group Publishing Director of the Luxury and Design Collection, and I'm so happy to be welcoming you all to our next panel hosted by Town & Country. First, I want to congratulate the New York Design Center, and especially the one and only, the living legend, Jim Druckman and his great partner, Alex Lerman, for pulling together a really rich series of engaging and insightful programming for these few weeks during the month of September. It's a huge undertaking, and so on behalf of everyone at Hearst, bravo to them. And I'm also sending a special thank you to FBC London for supporting today's panel. So what's new, what's next? What's new, what's next right now is a panel that I would say is sort of atypical of what is being featured by others. The theme is setting the stage, and it's quite fitting for a brand like Town & Country to curate a panel, to curate a panel that I would say is by a brand that has been covering the arts for 174 years. And there is no more critical time than now to talk about the current state of the arts and support our great New York City. And 200 Lex is certainly a landmark spot in the heart of this great city. And then who better to lead a conversation around arts and cultural institutions than someone who was born and raised in New York, whose personal and professional mission and commitments to supporting the arts and see them thrive again in our near future than Stellene Volandes. Stellene is hugely passionate about the connections between the production design of a Broadway show, for example, and how this is so closely aligned to interior design. Both set the scene for how our lives play out, and they have enormous impact on the outcomes. This topic and discussion is what we like to call #VeryTNC. So with that, I will turn this over to my great partner and friend, Stellene Volandes.
Thank you, Jen Bruno, and thank you, New York Design Center and Jim Druckman, the one and only. That is for sure a title you deserve. Looking forward to when we can all roam those gorgeous galleries at 200 Lexington, and then Jim, when we can all go out and have dinner at King again. To say this is my dream panel, I think anyone who's watching that knows me would probably have said it before I did, but it is everything that I believe in sort of in 1 hour in what's new, what's next. So I first want to welcome the amazing trio of geniuses that I have here with me today. We have Leyden Lewis, Elle Decor A-lister, a brilliant interior designer and teacher whose projects you see in so many beautiful magazines, and who has an exciting Martha's Vineyard project that I can't wait to see and visit him while we have to figure out a trip. Also, Leyden has made me completely rethink the idea of taste and where it comes from and who decides it. And we have this ongoing conversation that you'll soon see in print that I'm very, very excited about. Scott Pask, the amazing Tony Award-winning set designer and a great friend of Town & Country and of mine. I love sort of following his adventures in Arizona and his spectacular home there. But I also, one of my great, great regrets is that I did not see Scott's set for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf before theaters shut down on March 12th. It really, everyone that saw it in those previews before, they talked about the actors, but there was not one text that I didn't get that said, you have to go see this set. So I'm still hoping that the world gets to see your brilliance. And I know that you have upcoming projects, 1776 and Mr. Saturday Night. And I just can't wait for your visions and your world to be in front of us all again. Clint Ramos, also a Tony Award winner. He did Slave Play, which I know so many of us saw, and Soft Power at the Public. And he has an exciting project. He's doing The Outsiders as a show set to premiere in Chicago. And I can't wait to see Clint's vision for that. And I thank them all for being here today. And this is going to be a thought-provoking discussion, and it's going to allow us to imagine ourselves on many different sets and stages and in many different homes. So I think that's the best kind of discussion. I'm going to set the stage, so to speak, with the overarching question, and I pose this question to all three of you. Are our homes or apartments really just stage sets for our lives? Leyden, why don't you begin?
Hello, everyone. I'm really thankful and feel blessed to be with Scott and you and Carlos. Thank you for gathering us all together. Are our homes a stage set? The answer is yes. I mean, this is the place where we play out, right? As I have in my own practice and in teaching, really express the need for us to make spaces that cultivate the vision that we have for whether it's family building or love making, bathing, refreshing, resting, right? All of these things that we think are intimate and private. Honestly, we have to provide a place for those things to happen. So yes, they are a stage set, and also but the stage set is interactive. They can help us to achieve those goals as part of our vision, or they can stagnate. Who knows? I can't, and that's the way we can assess, maybe good, mediocre, or great design.
Mm-hmm. Scott, how do you feel about the question?
I mean, I certainly think that they're narratives for our lives. And just in my personal case, my domestic environment is almost an escape from the worlds that I create. So my personal taste is very austere and about materials and honesty of materials and light and things like that. So I kind of escape from the world in which I'm a kind of a chameleon of creation for spaces and worlds and environments for many different kinds of theater, characters, plays, musicals. And so my personal style, as I trained as an architect, was always kind of more elemental. So, but I do think that homes are like, there is a narrative in every room for sure, and the opportunity for narrative in every room. And I think that's what's exciting about design in general is storytelling.
Yeah. The idea of escape, I think too, the sense of escape into theater and then having your home and in your interior environment as an escape or a shelter from the outside world. Clint, totally. Your one of your designs is the first up in our slideshow. So let's go to that. And is this the stage set for your life, Clint?
This is my bathroom.
You wanted it to be cozy, a sanctuary.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Soft surfaces.
Peaceful, tranquil. This is a set for Susan Laurie Park's Top Dog Underdog, and this was at the Huntington Theater in Boston. And I think theater design or set design it's always about context, like any design, and I feel like this is for me, I think what I like to do is actually more than render what the location is or what the sort of milieu is for that person, is actually somehow physicalize the emotional response that I had for the particular thing, and I think that's what, why I think I'm so addicted to theater design and design in general, is because we really could dictate emotional policy, So I think part of this is truly about the oppression of Black men, And so Billy Porter directed this. This was his production. And so when we thought about it, like we thought, oh, you know what? It's set in a single apartment vaguely in the sort of late 20th century. And Billy said, is there anything that we can do to really just drive home this fact, This was when Trayvon Martin got killed, And so we thought, why don't we just plop the whole thing in a bed of thorns, And just do that. Just set it there. Just lay it on there, and and then of course, and just let the theater is raw. I didn't surround the theater. I just like recreated this lighting grid around it. But the idea was, well, you want to see something, you want to see an emotion, well, here we can just plop it onto the theater. So watch an emotional response. That's sort of like the driving force for the design. So in terms of like interior, it's a dilapidated apartment in like the Northeast somewhere, and so that the research of that was just getting that particular thing right, and then like with a cake cutter, just slice a corner of it and plop it on this bed of thorns.
I loved your statement about establishing emotional policy. I loved when you said that.
Design is so political.
Right. Yeah,
but it's also so emotional.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that is. It's all about how do you evoke those emotional responses. Someone, when they see this, immediately has like this is an aggressive approach, and it's set there in a raw space. So you've already kind of given us a lot of information, and 100%. I think it's so rich and beautiful.
And I love that idea too about design dictating emotional policy. And I think that I'd love to hear how is it about textures? Is it about colors? What are the things in design that you think really evoke that kind of emotional and political response? I mean, I think both, I would love it sort of residential and set design.
I think it starts with the client's willingness to become vulnerable.
Here's an example of Leyden's work.
Yeah, I think it's your client's ability to be open, flexible. I think projects, I have not, I haven't been the designer who has some sort of a stamp style. I've always collaborated much more like my colleagues on this panel with each one of my clients. And so I'm a modernist, and every one of my projects has a very specific, I think there's an intention that a thread that you can read, but each one of my clients are my collaborators. And so this particular client, who are music publishers from LA, they needed a pied-à-terre in Trump International Hotel and Tower, and they said, we grew up with this building meaning something. I really want that 50s, 60s, industrialist feeling. I want to feel proud. I grew up the Plattner chairs meant something to him in his generation. And so, standing, 50 stories above, looking, above the city, looking at, it was a major accomplishment for this kid from Queens, and so there was a lot of discussion about what this meant to be at that place in their lives as a couple, coming, having moved to Beverly Hills from Queens, and now here they are, being able to afford and make a place to visit in New York City. So a lot of this is about their own story, and I'm just capturing those signs and signifiers, whether it be through modernist 20th century design, a little pace here, a little B&B Italia there, and really trying to create this, this theater for a certain amount of pride in what they've accomplished over the course of their careers.
But you've also created this incredible theatrical set too. I mean, you've got this gorgeous background. You've got this reflective ceiling that even reflects the light. This foreground background is beautiful. Like, it is a sort of testament to accomplishment. And I love what you say about signs. And because I always feel like signposts within even design are important, because these things that become signifiers that you talk about are things that we can relate an audience to, and then we can you try to get into that world so that there is an emotional partnership there, and an emotional response can be gleaned from these things that you understand. Like, this tells me about accomplishment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Scott,
and this does not tell you about accomplishment.
This is quite an accomplishment.
This is a little less.
This idea of sort of signifiers in a room or on a set is a really powerful thing that we sort of, everyone on this panel shares, right? With set design, there are things you place on set to indicate something about the story, about a character. And Leyden, I love that you approached your clients almost as their characters in their own great story. And these were this is the sort of design and the set of their lives. But Scott, tell us about this and what the signifiers are here.
The signifier here is Chevette on concrete blocks. This is a play called Airline Highway by Lisa D'Amour that we did in Steppenwolf in Chicago, and then on Broadway at Manhattan Theater Club. And it takes place in a motel on Airline Highway outside of New Orleans. And it happened after Katrina, and it's where the sort of what we'll call like the underbelly existed. And each of these rooms, there's even more of the hotel off stage left, that each interior was developed for each of the characters. And you could have almost shot the movie on this. They were so elaborate, and nobody really even saw into them. But if a door would open, the quality of light, the specificity of that, it helped each of those actors become their character. Like, I mean, I'm not going to say that I helped them, but I worked with each of them to be able to kind of tailor those experiences for them before they entered the stage. And it was a good, it's always great practice for me to just get into that level of detail. And it's always, I guess, rather gratifying. But the specificity of this and surfaces, and a lot of this is about decay. And for me, and doing that in the most authentic way, so it doesn't look like it's been sort of curated decay. I wanted people to really feel that the age in this, and that takes the skill of incredible scenic artists, prop masters, and the team of artisans who we're all working with every day and in theater. And this is people doing their best work, and that's what's always so gratifying about this. But
can I just say something about this, because this is one of my favorite Scott Pask sets. Right?
Oh, you are so kind.
The other favorite that I have is Little Foxes, and you'll see that later. But like, what I love about this is that, you know, it is a motel complex, but it's one of those like right by the airport kind of complexes, and for me, yes, there is sort of so much verisimilitude in this, but it's actually quite skilled, the way the vanishing point is positioned. And also, he's actually provided a down, which is very important, an up center and a down center place for an actor to like literally launch dialogue, right? So like if you look at where the landing of those stairs are, it's so positioned right in the middle of the stage. It looks incidental, but it's actually very contrived in a way. So I love this. It's just like stagecraft in its best form.
It's really quite beautiful. I get a lot of information from that particular image. It's really beautiful.
Well, and it's also beginning to bring up the idea that whether it's a stage set or a residential interior, people occupy it.
Yeah.
And you all need to accommodate for its function, right? Leyden, you brought up sort of all the rituals that happen in a house, and Clint, you just talked about sort of where dialogue can happen. And in all sort of the vision of beauty and of realizing a reality sort of in theater, you also have, there is practical matters that you all sort of bring to this as well. So Clint, speaking of practical, let's talk about the subject of this set.
Oh, so yeah, no, practicality is actually really good, a good topic here. This is Marie Antoinette.
Not practical.
Completely impractical. And so I think, you know, this is David Ajmi's beautiful version of Marie Antoinette. It's so colloquial, and we did this at Steppenwolf Theater, and I don't know what to say. Like, you know, I think part of the inspiration here was Kim Kardashian's changing room, which had these reflective floors. You know, I think they were either like polished aluminum, or I don't know. I couldn't really make up what it was in the research. I think so, you know, because the audience flanks the stage, we just shaped it into like this diamond. You know, parts of the floor popped up to provide furniture when Maria needed it. But this is the part where she's actually, again, it's one space for the whole play. You know, we didn't change anything. There was this overarching idea of that, you know, this idea of white roses for death, you know, and so this impending thing, this beautiful, you know, again, symbol, design is all semiotics, really, but like I think part of this idea of like, you know, what would ultimately, if she died, would suffocate her is all of these white roses, you know, and then she's just like peering out into the Tuileries, you know, when she was, this was when she was imprisoned, you know. Yeah.
You brought up the idea that it was inspired by Kim Kardashian's dressing room. How often, and Scott, this is for both you and do actual sort of real life interiors inspire your set designs?
I think it certainly happens. I mean, most recently in Virginia Woolf, I was inspired at the very beginning, and I'll say like the diagram was a piece of inspiration that the director and I shared, Joe Mantello, looking at Karl Lagerfeld's library in Paris.
Yeah.
And just the immensity and the drama of those books. And the books also were on their sides. I did not do that because ours was a believable interior within the 60s, but it's like the idea of the drama of a double height room full of those books and then keeping your furniture low and lean so that you don't diminish the drama of that. It's like there's so many ways to kind of take the cues from that. And so it was a great jumping off point. And I think if people were to see the set, they'd be like, I don't see how those two relate, which is even better. But it's like, it gets the dialogue and the conversation going. And it's something about that the beauty of that space was what kicked off our process.
Yeah, I would say all the time. I reference it all the time, you know.
And it might even be period historical rooms, or you'll kind of look at, you know, things that are, you know, I always look at Diana Vreeland's Red Room. I mean, like now we're here talking about this Red Room. You kind of go, it's just like the Billy Baldwin, and just, even if it's a piece of furniture that you've seen in a domestic interior, they're like, oh my God, that's the most perfect chair, and that will be so amazing, and that actually has a story about it.
I'm literally gonna steal this room.
Well, also it's got all the drama. It's got the sort of the lighting, the down. It's beautifully lit. It's like the recessed like of that beautiful surface of red. Amazing.
And her coming down that hallway.
Exactly. Dramatic entrance.
Her coming down that hallway, making that turn and just plopping herself. Just utter boredom.
Leyden, let's deconstruct the drama, because when we saw it, even on our sort of pre-call, we all said, okay, now there's some drama.
Okay, well,
discuss the drama here a little bit.
How do you make, like the perfect piece of fish without using too many ingredients, right?
Come on, fish.
That's how I think about things. Like, what can we, and it's not minimalism, because I do not consider myself a minimalist, but then there was this red, and it had to do with the fact that this was an office. And so to our point about, it was an office. So our point earlier about color, like this is supposed to be a place where we wake up. Right? Like I wanted a place that we go in and our minds are activated through color. And so we were talking about the color yellow earlier as, and red for me is both sexual, it's charged, it's, but I didn't want it also to be a room that was complicated, right? So I wanted you to be able to do your work and have that red beacon telling you to stay awake. And then how can I do that in the most restrained way? And be consistent, and that's what was accomplished in just this really very simple room. And what also was happening is the production of music, interestingly enough. Okay. So like I didn't want you to be distracted. I wanted you to think about your notes. I wanted you to think about like the focusing on your craft while still being charged.
And Leyden, I'm going to ask you sort of the inverse of the question. Do certain set designs or movie set designs inspire you for your interiors?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know what movie it is that there was like Nicole Kidman's feet are clunking down some hallway. And I just remember the sound, and I don't know which film it is. I don't know, but I definitely am quite aware of the people that are going to be occupying this space, and it's very filmmaker for me. I love film, and I love theater. So I do think about the people. I think about design in a very particular way, and my interiors tend to be muted. When I say muted, I'm ultimately preparing for Scott, Clint, Stellene, and Leyden to be the characters.
Uh-huh.
Right.
rather than, and this is nothing against gorgeous, highly detailed chintzes and, you know, and brocades. I have nothing against that, and I've used that, but somehow they can sometimes, first of all, they can actually shame us if we're not at that level. You know, like, you know,
I completely agree with that.
You understand what I mean?
Like, if the person can't bring the drama, right?
Like the person cannot bring the drama to the, you know, to the Venetian brocade, first of all, and then or whatever the collection is, and then sometimes it's like I can still wear jeans and a white T-shirt or whatever, and still be completely occupying this space.
Right.
Yeah, you know, or I could have on that Gucci black slip dress with a gold cuff. You know what I mean? There's multiple versions of myself. You know, I don't wear my black slip dress that often, but you know.
That would work here too.
Yeah.
Okay, Scott, this is Radio City.
Yeah, this
right?
is Kid Gorgeous of John Mulaney at Radio City, which we did and filmed for Netflix. He sold it out for 7 performances. And this, because I think he's such an elegant, great guy, and he's so funny, but he's also, his presentation, it was based on him, really. He shows that he's always performing in the most beautifully cut suit, and we're in Radio City, and I'd seen him in a few other cities around the country, and it's kind of like we've got to embrace that room and then shutter it down so that it embraces the scale of him. And he's also a very energetic comedian, so he would literally traverse the stage, so it really became these kind of, this is using perspective and kind of also embracing the Art Deco. I was so in love with the curtain at Radio City, and what's so amazing is behind the scenes, stage right, there's this almost like Jules Verne like brass panel that there's a person who's been controlling that curtain for all of these years, and you stand out in the front with a walkie-talkie and talk to him about which of those cables you want to kind of rise at a certain time to kind of create the aperture that is going to suit what you want to do. So we did that to create the aperture that will ultimately fit this. But it was ultimately quite simple. We used the lift. There was this big Art Deco glass piece that we did. And then he came kind of running out of the wing. So it was kind of upending his entrance. We had this elaborate entrance, and then he kind of slid on from the wing. So there's a visual joke right off the top. But it also was incredibly transformed by light. I mean, we see it in this one look here, but it was so, this gold fabric that was the closest that we could get to matching that, that gold fabric. And they've since said, they've come back to me to get that fabric specification, because they said, we've never seen it so well matched. But it's also something that just is able to transform. And that was one of the things, those lighting booms in the wings there also were helpful for camera, so that you weren't just looking into dark space. So, and Alex Timber is a brilliant director who was in his mind, like filming it as we were kind of rehearsing. It's just like, he is such an incredible collaborator, and also a dynamic visual director as well. So those collaborations are some of the most richest, and also because I love John and his comedy is so brilliant. This was a great experiment in that. And also something that we put together in one day. This went in and was loaded in the morning and was ready for rehearsal that night.
Scott and Clint, I have a question for you. You know, we spend tons of resources and the finances, you know, implementing this one interior, right, for our clients, because it's a different financial model. I'm wondering, like, to this, and I love dioramas. I love going to like the Museum of Natural History. There's a part of what you do is like, you're always creating a diorama in a lot of ways for a night. What does this just get packed up? How does it, and then does it get saved, reused? I'm just interested in, I know it's a practical question and it might not be the most innovative thing to ask, but does this get applied again at some other future time, or reappropriated, or have you used parts of one play to tell a story about another?
I mean, I'll speak to this one. This was saved. We saved all of those curtains. We saved that Art Deco piece. And I think recently it was donated to a theater company. So this, we are trying to be much more conscious about that. I mean, I think we have to be responsible about these materials that we're using. That was acres of this beautiful gold fabric, and it did go into storage for use, hopefully at another time.
Yeah, you know, I think the theater is still working towards a more sustainable model. You know,
correct.
A lot of you know, a lot of the stuff that we do, like furniture, everything is bespoke. You know, because sometimes the specifications need to match that particular space. You know, because you have to fit so many other things. But we're working towards a more sustainable model.
Yeah.
We brought up also this idea of people sort of living in these houses and characters in these spaces. And Scott, you also brought up something that I know we wanted to talk about, which was lighting.
Yeah, I mean, look at even the curved surfaces of this beautiful fireplace. So amazing.
Leyden, will you sort of take us through this room a little bit?
Well, this is, I always have to start off saying that this client was I don't know what, not an octogenarian, but she was I forget what it is when you're 9 in your 90s. It was a pretty incredible project. She since passed. She started this project when she was 90 years old, and she was one of the most interest clients that I've ever had. And she knew quality, and she was from Estonia, and she had was a survivor, and she just talked about a lot of her history. And this was basically her legacy apartment that she was leaving for her children and her grandkids. And she said, spend as much as you'd like, leaving it for them, and let them enjoy. And so we had a lot of fun. And it's we don't have a lot of buildings in Brooklyn that are based on the Park Avenue model. So this particular building was a Park Avenue residence. The architect's name is slipping now, and it was Art Deco. It was built in 1929. And I don't love to do too many things that are literally reproductions. So I said, what was Art Deco about? Like, I boiled it down again. There's my recipe again. So I said, it's about fluidity. It's about movement. I looked at a lot of paintings, and then I started to sketch. And this fireplace, which is made out of exterior concrete, was actually pulled in situ. This was done on site. And it's one of my favorite things that I've ever designed. And it just that plasticity that it grew right out of the walls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lighting wise, yeah, like look at how the light just rolls over it, and you can tell about the natural light that's on the right side and rolling into. It's just those surfaces are so beautiful, and I'm sure like I immediately like, what does it look like at night? You know, just start thinking about how do you play with that light, and I'm sure it's beautifully top lit and uplit, and the drama of that is a whole other story. And that's what's so amazing about it, the character of a home or an apartment during the day, and then when it turns, once its personality shift when you move into night. Like this.
Like this.
Which is terrifying all day long.
What happens here at night, Scott?
I know, just a lot of drinking, I'm sure.
That same apartment building.
That's right. That's exactly right. The one with the long-time tenant.
We talked about verisimilitude in set design, and this seems like a set where you really are trying to recreate real life very much.
Very much. But then also it's like canted at an incredible angle. So we had to we put this in the computer and just we're looking at every seat, what they would see. This was The House of Blue Leaves by John Guare, directed by David Cromer, and at the Walter Kerr with Ben Stiller and Edie Falco, Jennifer Jason Leigh. Just incredible cast. But there are some elements of surreality in it. You can see this in the model that I did for this. There are a series of nuns that enter into the break into the apartment. And so we want to kind of have it floating in this kind of sky. And in the model, I'd done this all out of paper. So I worked with a scenic artist on how do we really translate that so we don't lose the quality of that handcraft. And it ended up becoming a number of different elements of like starched fabrics and muslins and multi-layered elements, so we could maintain that kind of that cloud above them. But also you'll see like in the soffit over on stage right, and then the soffit that's right before, or the piece of ceiling right in front of the fire escape in that window, there were cracks that we created so that when a light would come on in the kitchen, that it would bleed into the room so that surfaces didn't meet intentionally. And there are spaces where structure does, and it's just a kind of deconstructed reality. But this was down, as we were talking, like with Ben Stiller, there was one afternoon when he was downstage and he was kicking these dust bunnies off the stage. And I told him, I said, Ben, I just glued those on. He was like, what? He's like, that is crazy. He's like, this is the most intense that I've ever, he loved it. He was so excited. And there are things also like the sofa sliding off the floor. I mean, this is ultimately about a family that's unraveling. And so as things start to come apart, I think it's instilling the narrative, like it doesn't have to be something that's taking away from the need for this to take place in an apartment, but there are ways for us to infuse it with more information,
right,
and information that's related to the story that's happening and the characters that are inhabiting the space, and create that emotional, this is about upheaval. And I think the way that this set looks like it's going to drop down and things are sliding off of it was hopefully passing that along to the audience.
Yeah, and how powerful that design can do that. Telegraph, upheaval, and a family coming apart. Leyden, so this is your project, and I love this. We've talked about this project together before. And I also, when we look at a set like Scott's for House of Blue Leaves, where it is, though it's telegraphing sort of the inner lives of the characters and sort of a dramatic arc, it is also recreating a real life apartment.
Right.
And, the way sort of Scott used dust bunnies to sort of create reality. I also, I do think that sometimes the question is, how do you, if sort of set designers are using certain elements to create reality, how does an interior designer create an environment that does not feel staged, that feels fully thought out but not staged?
That's complicated because this is quite staged for the photography, right? I'm not sure, sometimes I walk into to a design after they're living and I'm like, did you really need to move the chair there? So like that is not a part of my vision, dear, but that said, how do you not make it feel staged? I think it's truly authentic. It's about authenticity. And this is a couple, again, I love telling their stories because I can't tell anything about their interior until I tell you that one partner is from Queens in real estate. The other partner, he goes to South Africa. He finds the love of his life, and they come back and they buy another pied-à-terre, right?
Clients have such good stories.
Oh, I mean, I'm always excited about the stories of my clients. So then they said we want a Soho. So the story is here. We want a Soho-like apartment, but we don't want to live in Soho, and we need all the amenities of being on the Upper East Side. So there you have it. So we have this reclaimed floor and this polished interior, and they want to live. And their story is, we love, breathe, smoke, eat art. That is their story. And this is not staged. They are constantly changing the collection. We created systems and the lighting so that it's flexible. The only piece that doesn't move is the watermelon piece, but everything that's on that kind of back painted glass cube, which holds the kitchen, is constantly being changed with their rotating collection of things that they want to see and enjoy when they're in New York. So how do you make it not look staged? You ask those questions like, are you putting this here so that are you trying to show someone else your art collection, or what's the point, right? It is a gallery for living, but the fact is it's not a gallery, it's not a public space, it's your personal space. Right. So I think it's also our perception of what is staged, right? I think that's really the question to ask, because someone might say, this looks like these people are, out of my league, or I couldn't live with that kind of art. Many different conversations have come out, but the fact is that these people, for this particular couple, they're completely all in. Yeah. And so it's not staged, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then that was where art's the color in the room too. Right. Those beautiful floors and textures.
I love that apartment. I just love it. No, literally, I love the temporalness of the way the furniture is laid out, but I also love the tension between that, the sculpture of the watermelons and the painting. It was beautiful.
It's the same artist in doing a bronze piece. So when people have collections, I just love it. That's my art, is collecting art personally and with my clients.
I also love the idea of you walking in and seeing things moved around. Because part of it also
All
is
of us. I think
you all sort of have a vision and you put things in place to tell a specific story, and then whether it's a client or a director or an actor, sometimes things do get moved around.
Oh,
Right?
for
I always
sure,
think
for
it's so.
sure.
Sometimes when that happens, I say, "Get that out of here." I just say it, and I just want to see their reaction. You know what I mean? And then, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know.
Clint, take us into this, because this is another. It is sort of residential, but it is very.
Yes, I mean, this is Appropriate by Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, who is a MacArthur genius, and this is directed by my great collaborator and friend Liesl Tommy, we did Eclipse together, and she's
Okay.
The Outsiders. This is Brandon's big American family drama on race. And there was not, Brandon is African American, and he wanted to write a race play without any Black people on it. And so this is about a white family coming back to their ancestral home, their dying ancestral home, and in the South, and divvying up the estate, you know. And so the whole idea here was, how do we create this space? Their father, who just died, was a hoarder. How do we create this space that was dying, you know, that literally felt like it was gasping its last breath? And, you know, I mean, a lot of this is just through the research of those places, a lot of lath work, a lot of the plaster that's peeling. But, you know, I think, whereas I think it wouldn't develop to this sort of like state, and we needed to like theatricalize it, I really wanted to capitalize on this idea of lath work as like these, almost like these ribs, these skeletons that are, you know, like when you see these carcasses of dying animals. And so this was that, and a lot of it was, you know, just like looking at that research. There's a plantation in Virginia that has this unbelievable floating, like, I forget what plantation it is, but the staircase is, it seems like it's just literally attached. The architecture is attached, but then you really think about all the oppression that happened to build these edifices, you know what I mean? And so this was it. And this is, again, one of those like things that we just needed to render that, plop it on the stage, and invade the audience in a way, insist on itself, you know, make itself uncomfortable. The discomfort was very important. This literally ate about 3 rows of the I mean, it was not a popular set with the theater because we lost seats, right?
Oh, wow.
But they needed to be there. They needed to be invaded, you know, in a way. It needed to be uncomfortable.
Clint, I wanted to ask you the walls. We haven't talked so much about materials, and I think probably the people watching do. The walls of that set, what are they made of?
They're made out of like, wood, you know, but there's also like a lot of foam work that's being done on, you know.
And then are they sort of painted, or?
There's a lot of scenic artists that, you know, and then, you know, I mean, this is a theater, right? So they hoist up the ceiling first, build the walls, you know, assemble the walls, build the deck first, and then plop the ceiling down. And, and, you know, we just, part of this is just giving the lighting designer access, you know, not like there needs to be a porosity to the scenery. And so,
you know, Clint, I just had to say, I thought cancerous. When I looked at this, I felt like we were, when you said the carcass, I love that analogy as a party around this room, like the decaying carcass. I think it's an incredible set that, I mean, whether people even that need to animate this space, I think you've done such an incredible job on telling a story way beyond like whether one word needs to be spoken or not.
And it's also just such a gorgeously dramatic space. I mean, you want to hear what story is going to happen in there. I think that's what's so great. And then you look at those, like that set's not finished until those people enter the room, and just look at her in the red top. Immediately, she commands. She's right there. She's commanding the space.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the thing about this panel is now I'm sort of deeply depressed about the shows I didn't see. because I didn't see this, and so hopefully again soon.
Yes, very
Clint.
soon.
Leyden, this is sort of this perfect, you know, we're getting into some of our sets and interiors now that are sort of that surround you, right? And this feels very much like your own corner of the world.
Yes. I used to say when I was just starting out my own practice, I think that, you know, I think I was channeled Eileen Gray for this room. She's you know, and I didn't know how much I was attached to feminism principles in architecture when I was 29 years old. I did not know that. But the fact that this woman had, I really responded viscerally to her story, and the way that she started to break down even like the use of the furniture floor plan, just being very direct, like this loose, fluid, I call it a kind of a confetti layout, but it's about people. And you know, without getting into that, we'll pick up on that on the taste conversation. Just her way of just organizing furniture, and honestly, like a great apprentice, I mimicked her layouts on how to be fluid and open, and it feels like and that's that wall is semi upholstered. The rest is I love leather. We'll have another conversation about that. The leather floors, the plaster.
Oh, those floors are leather. Oh.
The floors are leather by Edelman, and they're herringbone leather. The walls are Encasto, and there's that panel that just tells you this area by the fireplace is something different than the overall room by designating area in what was a dangia kind of faux silk that's supposed to flush with the wall. So I just wanted to just tell a story about history, and you know, and again, this is another view of that room. So for me, this is my room. This is, you know, the two rugs are by Doris Leslie Blau. One is a Scottish. One is a Scottish. Not deco, Scottish rug, and the other one is an Iranian 30s rug. I mean, I just wanted to just like imagine if I had a room that I could just live in forever, this would be it.
Yeah, it's so timeless.
I love that.
Yeah, this was my personal.
Well, Scott, if there was a room I could live in.
Oh, yeah.
I remember this was downtown on Wall Street, and we all walked in. Generally, sets for fashion shows are quite minimal, and we were all suddenly like, "Where are we, and can we stay?"
And most people did, because it was designed. This is for Bottega Veneta, autumn winter 19. So yeah, there was a part in the back there where you see that gentleman standing. There was a mural that I had done, but there was a sort of faux concrete wall that hovered in front of that. And at the very last, you know, the last person to walk was Gigi Hadid, and then that flew up, that like raised up, and then all the models that had been gathering were in this sort of bar space, and then it spilled out into the living room, even though the living room was sort of peopled with the collection as well, and the people that had walked before. But then the after party was in this apartment.
Right.
And it was really fun. And it's a combination of using Bottega furniture and then me scouting the world and pulling pieces of, you know, those Scarpa chairs. I mean, this was now already 2.5, 3 years ago. And getting things reupholstered, some amazing Ponte pieces, some incredible art. This was a lot of fun, and it was just the detail with Thomas Meyer, and just working with him as a collaborator was really fun. And
he really knows design. I mean, really.
Oh my gosh, the most incredible taste. It was just such fun, and he and I just jumping on the phone talking about the pieces and color, because the collection was kind of kept secret. So I was feeding color to him and saying, and I was like, let's be bold here. And he was like, this will be great. This is working. I'm going to use this turquoise here. But also the only light when you walked in, we got permission to use fire. So there was that central column was a fireplace.
Gorgeous.
So that was the only light. And then these perfumed candles. So it was about the senses when you walked in, and then little by little, it kind of revealed itself.
Right. No, and also the idea, again, of sort of this total immersion, right? It was light and scent. what's next? Oh, Leyden, this is sort of immersion. This is like this amazing screen you built.
Yes. So it's a ghost. It's a screen that I call Ghost, and that also is my chair. It's called Klezmos One. It's of my design, which I'm working on expanding my own collection.
Oh, excellent.
So this was a chair that I designed, and it's covered with Ulf Moritz fabric. Again, that is like woven rubber and cotton. I mean, that talks to me a lot. And this sheet silicone screen that really just bent and just changed around. And I mean, the lighting, that sheet silicone, the way this thing glowed, it was like flexible alabaster in the middle of the room. It was just really, really, really incredible. So just wanted to, again, create these backdrops that didn't compete with like the Takayasu piece or the, or this different art collection that I had pulled together, but also did kind of frame them in a very specific way.
Right. No, and balance, I think, is another thing that keeps coming up, sort of balancing sort of design and function and sort of the people populating it and the story that has to be told.
Yes.
And next, I think okay, so this is the famous yellow room, Clint.
Yes, this is a very controversial yellow room.
And this is, I mean, this speaks to sort of interior research and
yeah, this is familiar. It's supposed to be a home in Minnesota, and it's a home by a very successful doctor from Zimbabwe and his family. And you walk into the theater, you just see this home basically. And so for this, I went real estate shopping in Minnesota, and I think one of the things that is amazing is when you start populating the space with people of color, the yellow actually just it's the perfect backdrop for like dark skin, and so it was an African family, and it was a comedy, and so it's certainly about their taste, right? And sort of like the amalgamation of all of their stuff. And so there's the lazy boy for the dad, and the aunt who so it's all about that. It's about the curation of their lives, basically.
Right. And again, we have a set design that telegraphs success, right? I mean, and we looked at so many interiors where that story of that the design is telling sort of an achievement story.
Yeah, it's a very specific achievement. It's an immigrant achievement.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. I can totally relate to that. Yeah,
that's right.
I also want to jump in and say how beautiful the lighting is. You've got this this huge picture window back there, but then you look down at the bar and you've got these buried fixtures, like that little lamp stage, right? You've got a coffered ceiling that has some light in it. You've got that bar that has the down light. So you can imagine how through the course of the play, how you're able to kind of focus down in these smaller areas within the house itself, and even the ceiling. I mean, it's just such a beautiful use of light.
It's our favorite. Tyler Michelot lit it.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah, he did the band's visit. He's brilliant.
Oh,
totally brilliant.
I really love the fact that we've gone through the storytelling through aspirational and kind of interior design and self-esteem. I love that. And it's really amazing.
No, I think so too. And Clint, when you said sort of immigrant status, you like that the lazy boy is still there.
Because,
I come from a Greek family. Like
exactly.
Like there are certain things that do not go.
No. And it's mostly about compromise. It's like, the signifiers of stuff. And so perhaps the mom has
so a whole family dynamic is written through furniture.
Right.
Well, this is a family set of sorts.
Yeah, exactly. The wrong family.
And what I think is so remarkable here is that this tale could be so sort of over the top in set design, right? Because it is about sort of over the top scheming and emotions. And yet this is so sort of, I mean, there's so much drama, but there is restraint in this design too. For
sure. I mean, yes, definitely. It's in a play about the demise of the quote unquote ruling class. I mean, this for us was about, in 1789, like the end of the play, the guillotine comes down on Marie Antoinette. So, and these were the couple of years leading up to that. But it's just such about as you said, the scheming and the machinations with the sort of the idle class, and then the people that were doing the work and the oppressed. That wall behind is all mirror. It's all black mirror. So you would see the servant class and paying attention to these sort of toxic events that these hyper privileged people were doing. And then at the very end, and there were pivoting doors all through that glass. So they would like scurry in and see it. But at the very beginning, what we see now is the spider web at the end, when everybody was sort of caught in the game. But before, it was this elaborately sort of buoyant, heavily, Baroque kind of curtain that was a room. We did do it in like one space, and but this curtain became a sort of just this icon of excess. And even the candelabra, the candlesticks were full height. They weren't burnt down. I was like, those candles are replaced every day. Like, we don't burn them down. And it was this making sure that everybody knew, like, it's exactly like this and it's perfection. But then I painted everything black. Everything was high gloss black. The floor was black mirror. So you can imagine, even when you see the little bit of bunting up above, that curtain fabric, what those costumes would like when they come out. Like, they were the stars. Like, each of those dresses and was the star of the show. And that was sort of where I chose to sit back a bit, provide a great backdrop that has the story infused into its architectural design.
Right. Again, this idea of people moving through it and how they're going to occupy it. And I just also realized, as much as our theme has been families and design as sort of like a signifier of accomplishment, it also, there's been a lot of sets that sort of show sort of design as sort of the sort of destruction of families and civilizations, right?
True.
It's like both things, sort of on the way up, it helps you tell your story, and as you're coming apart, it tells the story for you.
I also think that what's so hard too is like what Clint and I do is so ephemeral, and you're trying to capture moments. Like, I'm sure the course of like each play that we see, like that, it's just something where we're capturing kind of our overall views of these sets and these places in which these stories are being told, and capturing the moments within them is so we have to imagine those. And that's what's so dreamy about Clint's set in that yellow room, is like imagining what those moments and those conversations are within it. And another dreamy room.
So I love this room. This is the same room, right?
Right, it is. It's
so beautiful. I love the duality of this too.
Yeah, I think that the photographer was really able to capture the amount of materiality. Again, it's subtle, and it tends to be in a more monochromatic schematic because of the diversity of the art pieces that we really wanted to have pop. So and I think you had mentioned earlier the lighting, and lighting is critical. I think it can be, there's a balance, and I've definitely, over my 20 some odd year career, learned to pull back and to enhance and to push lighting, but sometimes it can really tell a story. Where some people might think that you need to tell it with a color, you can actually tell it through that fabric. I thought it's very theatrical for us to take this immense wall and just drape it and just light this beautiful Jack London Larson fabric. And it was just enough that that was the art itself. It had no windows on that wall. So we wanted to kind of, gesture at the fact, is there a window behind there? Is there more space in the room? So one can do, as a designer, we can trick the eye, kind of a trompe l'oeil.
Right. And this, like the next slide, you're working in a sort of prescribed space, right? When you're a designer sort of entering an apartment or a home, many times you can sort of do renovation and change the space, but this is the band's visit, an exquisite show. And you recreated a whole sort of city.
Yeah, and again, like jumping around Google mapping and literally walking the streets of one of these Israeli desert communities. And but again, this is about the texture, the surfaces, the specificity of the air conditioning units. Like, it's really trying to breathe like authenticity and
no, and the level of sort of research, like where research comes in and inspiration, whether it's on sort of, you know, real estate websites or, you know, it's amazing the detail that goes through, or Eileen Gray with Leyden. Clint, this is like spectacular.
Beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, this is Wild Goose Dreams. It was written by a Korean playwright. And the task here was to immerse the audience.
Yeah.
Soul.
And we're going to see this again, right? Don't we see this set? We see it
later
again.
on,
You really see how immersed you are. Scott, so Clint sort of brought up this set before. And
this is very kind. But I want to say, Clint, I did this set in the public theater after Wild Goose, and I walked in there. I remember doing a site visit going, oh my God, this is so incredible. You literally walked in the room and you were a part of that play, which was so phenomenal. And the color was so beautiful. This is Little Foxes.
These colors, Scott, are exquisite.
Gorgeous.
Thank you. And this is a story where the play has been done many, many times, and for Daniel Sullivan, the director, and this is about a play where the business scheme is they need money. Like the whole play is like hinging on this financial deal that they're trying to sort of slightly underhandedly pull off. And Regina's green dress, I was like, this house is a sort of faded green, and and I wanted the house to actually have the appearance of they're trying to keep it up, but that whole house really needed a paint job. And not to the point where it's unbelievable or it's that it takes you completely out of the play, but there's a level of distress that ombres up and it also that was for me like the idea of what the cleaners and what the people could do. It's like it kind of finishes at about 8 feet and then it starts getting really bad, and then the decay in the ceiling, and like Clint said, you are trying to have a porous space, so the entry is off right, so you can't exactly see it. The windows are off left. I mean, I say it's stage left. It's on our right in the photographs. But this is a play all about an entrance, and it's that center staircase, and it's like an entrance and an exit, and then a full ceiling. So the lighting was really all done through those apertures of the light, the windows, the rooms at the back, coming from above, the lamp fixtures, which are oil lamps, and then from what's quietly and softly tucked in the front, so that we can really kind of oppress that space and have that decay be the house needed to be a character in the play.
No, and you see how much it is, right?
Can I just say something that's really like, what's gangster about this set? Okay, let me explain something to you. What's really gangster about this set is that it has a full ceiling. So just imagine how you're supposed to light the set, right? So this is like bloop, ceiling, deal with it, right? But the other thing that I love about this is really like perfectly staged for that turnaround. Climb up the stairs, turn around, and read somebody.
Right. Totally. Deliver the line and keep going.
Like exactly. So it's my favorite set ever.
But I think that's so interesting of thinking of elements of design that allow you to sort of live a certain kind of life, right? Or deliver a certain kind of line.
Exactly.
Right? We have like 4 minutes left. So I want to make sure, I mean, I could stay on forever, but they might sort of shut the video. So, so let's go to the next slide. And so Clint.
That shows the power. Amazing. It's so incredible.
So just so everyone is clear, the set we just saw of Little Foxes was at the same theater.
No, sorry. This is a different
doing another show.
Like I did another show after this one.
Okay. But just so you see sort of how spaces are transformed by design.
Right.
I mean, completely transformed. And this is total immersion, Clint, right?
It's like we needed to immerse the audience into Seoul. Korea.
Yeah. Amazing.
But I mean, you literally walked in there and the color of it was just so amazing. And
this is another immersion, Scott.
Yeah, this is the visit.
Surrounding
this piece of taking a musical, Cantor Neb's last musical, written by Terrence McNally and Chico Rivera, and it took place in a Middle European country of no name, and just taking this, and it was all about decay. And then the plot of it is also this woman with an immense amount of money comes and she will infuse the economy if they do this one thing. And so it's about the mystery of that, and will they actually do that? And so it's taking the nature and the Industrial Revolution and looking at the failure of that and the decay of it, and meshing them all. And then again, this is a space that's completely empty until it's animated by the actors. You can also imagine the clothes, and this is an incredibly false perspective going off there. So it's all much more shallow than you would imagine.
Well, I think sort of looking at all the designs, both the residential designs by Leyden and then the set designs by Clint and Scott, you know, design tells the story of our lives. I mean, whether you're a character in a show or a woman living sort of in Brooklyn, you see how every single design decision someone makes for you, you make for yourself, telegraphs the drama of your life, the joy of your life, the narrative arc of your life. And it's so incredible to have visionaries like the three of you be able to write those stories for us. This has been a joy. And I will just say to Clint and Scott that seeing your work just makes me miss theater so much, and make me hope that very soon we'll all be back together in a theater. Okay.
Yeah, indeed.
And Leyden, we'll go together and see what Clint shows and what Scott shows, and then we'll all go to dinner.
Absolutely.
Just be able to kiki in person would be really amazing.
Oh, that'd be brilliant.
I can't wait.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Stellene. This has been a joy.
Thank you, New York
Great to
Design
see you,
Center, and more to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This was
Take care.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.